Well, good morning. Good morning. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. A really exciting day for Ripple and for RLUSD. As you heard Monica mention, we've made some exciting announcements today, both around our advisory panel as well as our day one partners that we're going to launch with as we continue our journey. I was reminded this morning of some advice my mom has often given me, which is that you're judged by the company that you keep. And at Ripple, we're really, really proud of the partners that we're going along this journey with. Many of you are in the audience today. I've been really energized over the last 24 hours just in conversations with you, and we're really fortunate today to have 3 of our day one partners on stage with us today. So why don't you guys take a moment to introduce yourselves, and we'll dig in. We'll start with you, Bobby.
Good. Good morning, everybody. My name is Bobby Zagata. I'm CEO for Bitstamp USA and Global Chief Commercial Officer. Really excited to be here and to be partnered with Ripple. In terms of my background, I've been with Bitstamp for 3 years. Prior to that, I did 3 years at Kraken as Chief Commercial Officer. And prior to that, I was at CME Group on the traditional side. I was a member of the leadership team there, ran a couple of divisions, but also had the opportunity to co-sponsor our Bitcoin futures product back in the day when they thought we were crazy. But that product has done very well for CME Group. The couple things you should know about Bitstamp: we're the longest running crypto exchange, and our claim to fame really is being the most compliant and the most, the most broad regulatory licensing footprint in the business.
Great.
Challenge that. I'm Nancy Beaton. I am the President of the U.S. and Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer for Uphold. I've been in the space since 2018. I was actually on the other side. I brought tokens and NFTs to market in a global social metaverse. Received SEC no action letter, only the 3rd ever, and we launched. And I've been at Uphold for about 2 years now. We have a platform, unlike traditional exchanges, we're actually connected to 30 trading venues. So when our users come, we go and shop the market so they don't have to and bring back the best price for them. That infrastructure underpins an enterprise business, an institutional business, and a retail business that's been successful for the last 10 years.
Awesome. Well, great to be here at Ripple Swell. See an awesome audience here. I'm Ivan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MoonPay. Our mission is to bring as many people into the crypto economy. We want to move billions of people into the crypto economy. So far, it's been millions. We focus on payments infrastructure. We try to make it as simple as possible for people to onboard. We bring them through a regulatory compliance KYC process. We help them take their payment methods to save them with us, and we make it very easy for them to buy their first crypto. We continue to work really on conversion. We want the very best experience localized every single part of the world. We're in 160 countries. And so we think that this entire crypto economy is global. It requires the best payments infrastructure to make that happen.
Great. Well, thank you all. Let's start with the stablecoin industry at large. There's a lot of excitement around it, and I think a lot of that enthusiasm is premised on the thesis that we're at roughly $175 billion market today, and really smart folks think this is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar market by the end of the decade. And so, A, how do you respond to that thesis? And if so, what kind of drivers do you see happening that are going to take us from $175 billion to $5 trillion? Start with you, Bobby.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, firstly, as you all know, the stablecoin has already played such a crucial role in the development of the ecosystem. I kind of think of it as not the only one, but maybe the first kind of killer use case around crypto. And what it has done is it's just reduced frictions, in terms of transfer of value, and in terms of collateral, and even in terms of lending, and in terms of many, many things. When you look forward, though, I think the rest of the traditional financial services marketplace is now waking up to the importance of this, and we're going to see significant growth. And there's a couple of things that are necessary for that. I think, firstly, we'll have to figure out kind of interoperability. There's quite a few quality projects out there, many of which lack the ingredients, I think, but we're going to have to solve for that. The other thing that's interesting is different fiat currencies. It's not just USD anymore. There's Euro, there's Real, there's other things that are gaining traction. And I think that's really important too. And then finally, maybe it's a question. I think when I think of the future of stablecoins, I think about the FX marketplace, which is ginormous, $7 trillion or something like that. What does stablecoins mean for that? And blockchain seems to be a much more natural and secure way to do what happens in FX markets. So I think there's the possibility that that becomes the next huge use case for it.
Just a quick follow-on question. You mentioned the different fiat-backed currencies. Do you also see, given the nature of your business operating in many different markets geographically, where do you see the differences from a stablecoin adoption and also enthusiasm when you think of a global marketplace?
Yeah, well, thus far it's been dominated by USD, obviously stablecoins, and you know, there's a couple of giant incumbents out there, which have been helpful in terms of reducing frictions, as I mentioned. But when I look to the future, I think there'll be a shift in the balance of power here based on more fundamental ingredients of what makes a trustworthy token, such as your token.
Question for you, Nancy. More of your business is in the US and historically has been more of a retail business. Talk a little bit about the use and adoption of stablecoins within the Uphold platform and how you see that potentially changing, you know, as you look ahead.
Yeah, I think as we move forward, I think, you know, I do think stablecoins are the killer use case. You know, they are screaming utility, right? When you try to transfer payment to someone outside of your country, you know, they are 24/7, which your traditional bank is not. They are borderless, which your traditional bank is not. They're lower cost. You know, I can wire you money for $12, or I can send you some stables for 2 cents. You know, and they're just rapid settlement. It's instant. And so I think we see a lot of people adopting stablecoins. One, I would say, you know, about 90% of all crypto transactions involve some sort of stablecoin in that transaction. And then we see a lot of uptick in first peer-to-peer payments. I think on the retail side that will continue to grow the easier we make it. And then you do see a lot of these burgeoning countries getting involved in stablecoins. Maybe they don't have quite the solid foundation of their own currency in their own market. And so I think, you know, they're really attracted to stablecoins, whether they be USD, whether they be peso, whether they be euro. So I think you'll see a lot more on the retail side, the easier we make it, to make it borderless, easy, fast for people to use.
A lot of regulatory issues that are embedded in that, which we're going to come back to in a moment. But Ivan, want to hear from you. You have a different business than Nancy and Bobby in terms of being really more focused on the infrastructure on-off ramp. And we were talking earlier, 22 million wallet customers of yours, which is very impressive. Congrats on that growth. But how do you see the use of stablecoins today? What role you serve, you know, in that ecosystem, and how do you see it growing for MoonPay?
Yeah, so when we started the business, most people would come to MoonPay because they wanted to buy Bitcoin or a major crypto asset, and they wanted that experience to be super easy. But what we're starting to see, especially on our platform, is a lot of people are starting to move into stablecoins so they can be trade ready to move into any other asset. And that's consistent with what you see in the market. About 65% of all the trading activity in crypto is in stablecoins. And if you think about it, you know, you'd love to be in a position where you could take any form of currency and turn it into a digital dollar. That's far more efficient, far easier to transfer anywhere in the world. I think the really next killer use case we're going to see for stablecoins will be around payouts. If you think about a lot of these marketplaces today, trying to send the money off platform to people in 160 different countries is very challenging. So to be able to do that via stablecoin and then enable that customer to then convert that back into their bank account or convert that into another crypto asset, I think is going to be the future.
Follow-up question, as you were speaking, I was thinking about, in all this enthusiasm, also the counterbalance to that is what are the impediments to this increased adoption that we're all excited about, that we all see happening? And certainly one of the things that we bear witness to is the challenge with banks, fiat banks, to be that on and off-ramp partner. Just given your business, I'm curious how you see the landscape today, how you see that changing, and also for Nancy and Bobby, other impediments you see to the adoption of stables.
We really see ourselves at MoonPay as building a passport. No customer wants to go through KYC 10 different times, right? They want to have a simple experience when they want to come into crypto. And so the idea of building up this customer base that has KYC on file makes things super frictionless, right? So they can essentially onboard with MoonPay once and then use any wallet in the ecosystem and not have to go through KYC again. And I think that's going to become increasingly important. Customers don't want to have this friction when it comes to being able to collect a stablecoin and being able to convert that back into their bank account.
Yeah, I'd also say regulatory clarity will help. You know, when we partner with the likes of Ripple or others that have these stablecoins in the market, regulatory compliance, regulatory clarity helps a lot. You know, when we, like Bitstamp, we want to be compliant. We try to get a license everywhere we can get a license. Right. And so when there's clarity around how you can use this type of tool, and I think it's a tool that we can all get around, right? It has clear benefits to users. So I think the regulatory clarity in each of these markets will help gain more and more traction for those that have real utility.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add, I totally agree with those points, is I alluded to this, a little bit of a shift in the balance of power here. There's a couple of giant incumbents, and what I think will be necessary for a really healthy and a fully adopted stablecoin ecosystem is when that AUC spreads out across more quality projects, stablecoins specifically. The incumbents, again, they've played a really important role, but why are they so much bigger than the others? If you look at it on paper, there's not a ton of great reasons for that. But the newer projects that are coming out are really founded on trust and issued by trust companies or a regulated entity, and they really have a different profile, different risk profile. So what I'm anxious to see is the barrier of kind of this monolithic marketplace today to being a much more kind of equal footing type of opportunity for different ecosystems, different currencies, and different participants.
Yeah, well, we share that vision, and certainly the bet that we're making at Ripple. Everything that Ripple does has very much of a compliance forward approach. As I think everybody knows, we've applied for a stablecoin license through Standard Custody and Trust, which Ripple acquired this summer. And our objective is to issue a stablecoin through a trust company, which is a significant differentiator. Our expectation is that that's really going to matter to the institutional community. There are a lot of people using the incumbents today, the largest being effectively unregulated, and people are really attracted to the liquidity, and that regulation doesn't so much drive their behavior, in part maybe a dearth of alternatives, but also just given how a lot of the investors operate, regulation is not at the top of their forefront of their mind. But Nancy, you touched on it. How much do you think being regulatory compliant is going to matter to this next stage of the evolution of the stablecoin market or crypto in general?
I think it's going to be super important. I think clarity is good. So clarity of how we can use it, what we can use, how we want to bring it to the market is always helpful. And I think, the industry would like clarity from the regulators. I also think that when we look at, we've talked about the retail side, when we look at our B2B side, we are really an infrastructure platform. So we can serve retail, we can serve institutions, we can serve enterprises. But what we find on the enterprise side is there are a lot of people trying to figure out payouts, right? Either trying to figure out this gig economy, trying to figure out cross-border payments. And so we have a lot of companies coming to us saying, hey, you have the technology for us to seamlessly be able to pay out, go cross-borderless, do all these things. And when we bring a solution to them, the idea that that solution is nicely regulated and follows all the rules, then it's easier for them to adopt. It's easier for them to put into their platform itself because they have responsibilities as well. So I think it fosters growth not only on the retail side for clarity, but I think on the B2B side as well, because people are more comfortable to get into the game, and I think that will foster the volume that we want to see.
I think we also learned our lessons over the last couple of years where things can go wrong on stablecoins, right? You need to know that they're actually, in fact, stable, that they're actually being backed by proper instruments. And I think, by putting it under a regulatory framework, like with the NYDFS, it engenders trust, and that's incredibly important. If you're trading on this stablecoin, you want to know it's fully backed by treasuries. You want to know where that money is ultimately being held. And so, when you think about where things went wrong, it's when we didn't actually understand what was actually underpinning or backing these stable coin type instruments. So it's absolutely critical for this industry to thrive, for stable coins to thrive, that there is a regulatory framework where we can actually trust that these things are backed, in fact, by what is being purported.
Just to add, I think the banking situation in this country is an example of what can happen when there isn't regulatory clarity. I think the regulators are trying to manage risk, but they're creating a tremendous amount of risk by forcing this industry, this regulated, law-abiding industry, to concentrate in a few banks, a few regional banks at that. So stablecoin regulation in particular will really open up a lot of possibilities and get us collectively in a position where we can manage risk better.
Yeah, and on the banking side, it's so much of an international, I should say global industry. And the holy grail, the happy path, is to have these big global banks who can support you in whatever jurisdiction, because there's not that harmonization across border necessarily from a regulatory standpoint. But if you can find banks willing to work with you, and we do think having a regulated entity, we certainly get a better reception from the bigger banks, coming at it out of a DFS regulated.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier, and we were saying too, I think the first volume will probably come on the retail side, and I think institutions and enterprises will adopt it. But I think as the retail side, we were talking earlier, if it's regulated, it's an easier glide path for somebody to trust it, to get involved in it. It will be an introduction into the crypto space for many people, right? This will be their way in. And if they have something that they understand how it's underpinned, that they understand that it's regulated, I think that's an easier way for them to get into crypto, and then they'll start trading other things. So I do think stablecoins will be some people's first entry into the space.
I think the next really important big thing that needs to happen is around yield for these stablecoins, right? Most people aren't being paid anything on the stablecoins that they hold, but you want to give the customer that incredible flexibility to move into any yield-bearing product. And so we're at the infancy of that. We're trying to get regulatory clarity over how people can actually earn yield on their stablecoins, but I think that's going to be the next important driver. And to have more flexibility than with your bank today. Your bank could have all sorts of counterparty risk, could fail. We've seen banks fail in the past. To have a stablecoin that you control and be able to move anywhere within the ecosystem, I think is an incredible innovation. And I think the next important path for us is to get to regulatory clarity on how individuals can start to earn yield, how to start using all these new exciting financial products, these smart contracts, where they can start to pick up that yield on their stablecoins.
It's a bit of a hot potato issue, which I'm glad you raised, and I happen to agree with you. I think the industry will evolve, and you'll see, and you've seen a couple of them outside the U.S., yield-bearing instruments. There are many that I think walk and talk like they're yield-bearing through reward programs with ecosystem partners, and I think that's one step in the direction. But clearly, if stablecoins evolve to be more of an alternative to fiat and change behavior, and as Superintendent Harris mentioned around financial inclusion, I think there's a lot of opportunities for stablecoins to really support the unbanked and whatnot. There's going to be a point in time when that end consumer really wants a yield-bearing component to it, and so I think as an industry we're going to have to figure that out and operate increasingly in a regulated industry, whether they deem to be securities or what. Since we've been on this journey at Ripple over the last 4 or 5 months of putting in our application, I think sometimes you just hear differently, and I personally have learned a lot in terms of the growing demand for alternatives. Bobby, you touched on them earlier. So far the industry has really been dominated by a few incumbents, and there is a real interest, I think, in having alternatives. Some of those are the structure that you talked about, Nancy and Ivan, in terms of the characteristics of it, but I think also some of those attributes have to do with use cases, and curious to dig in a little bit more on the payments use case. Obviously a core business of ours at Ripple, and we certainly feel like we have a competitive opportunity for us to introduce RLUSD into the payments business. How do you see, and you come at it in different ways from your respective businesses, but just curious how you see payments utilizing more and more stable coins over time and what the opportunity set is there.
I'll go back to the marketplace example for a second. Billions of dollars move outside of marketplaces. Like, these contractors need to get paid in all sorts of different local currency. For them to be able, they might not have a bank account. it will be much more efficient in a lot of cases for these marketplaces to start pushing out payouts via stablecoin, right? It actually moves a lot of the work that they have to do to find a recipient, to find a bank account, to have issues sometimes around making sure that transfer actually takes place, to be able to push out those payments via stablecoins. So I think that will be something that we're already starting to see payroll providers looking at being able to pay individuals using cryptocurrency. It's interesting. I have a funny example. One of my first employees that I had at MoonPay was an independent contractor. He was based in the Philippines, and he actually said, "I want to get paid in Ripple." So we ended up paying him in Ripple. We set that out, but for him to now be able to get paid in real USD, be able to pay it in a dollar that's stable, is, for me, that you're going to see more and more of that all across the world. So I think the remittance use case, I think the payout use case is going to be one of the first areas where people are going to get adopted into crypto. They're going to have their first wallet, and then from there, they're going to participate in the crypto economy and ecosystem.
Great. I think also, we say marketplaces, but you have this same issue, we have the same issue, just employees in general. When you become this global company, with contractors, with employees, with everybody in multiple countries, I do think the payroll solution is one that's needed badly in order to be able to employ and pay out. I think stablecoins is a great use case for that. I think we also see a lot of businesses that have traditional cross-border payments. So I'm wiring you money, I'm trying to send you money to your bank, or I'm trying to figure out how to wire from my bank to your bank, and it's not on a Saturday, it's not on a Sunday. I think that is going to be a big use case. There's a lot of businesses that facilitate this sort of payout cross-border, and I think they need a better way to do it. It's lower cost, it's 24/7, and it's frictionless. So I think that will be a big use case as well.
Agree with you.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. Like we haven't solved these yet. Payments, remittances, right? We've been talking about it in this space for a long time, and we're making progress, particularly, given the XRP, ecosystem and the kind of native chain rails that you guys have built. But it's not solved yet. So stablecoins, I think, are the very best opportunity to once and for all make it not prohibitively expensive and difficult and slow to move money, across borders, or from company to employee, or from company to company, or what have you.
I'd also say stablecoins are this new format, and it's going to take time for this new format to get adopted. So a lot of the stuff that we think about at MoonPay is how to basically operate in both of these worlds. This legacy world where you still have your debit card, you still have your credit card, you still have whatever alternative payment method that you use in different parts of the world, while you're also going to have this digital wallet. You might have multiple digital wallets, and you're going to want both of those systems to be interoperable. So a lot of the work that we do is you want to be able to go from your Venmo into a stablecoin and then be able to trade within the crypto economy. You want to be able to go from PayPal. You want to be able to go from your local bank account. So solving that, being able to build that backwards compatibility, the best analogy I can give you is what happened in telecoms, right? So you remember it was really expensive to place these long distance phone calls. Then you had the advent of Skype. Most of our communication now happens over the internet. iMessage, Zoom, all these things are based on the internet protocol. Money will be based on an internet protocol, which is the blockchain. But it's going to take time for that to be adopted, and so you need to build the system that's going to bring as many people in, that's going to be backwards compatibility with the existing system, and that's how you're going to bring mainstream adoption. So over time, everyone's going to realize that stablecoins are a far more efficient means of payment than the payment methods that we have today. Cheaper, faster, more liquid. You have a lot more flexibility over what you're going to be able to do with it. But it's going to take time to get to this world where everyone has a wallet. And so it's going to start with, oh man, this contractor received their payout in a wallet, and now they're participating in the crypto economy.
I think also changing behavior so it's not just transactional. It's just not an on and off ramp where you'll incentivize people, and just the behavioral change where you're actually holding stablecoin is just a store of value as well. It's just more efficient than going in and out of fiat or on and off ramp. Back to capital markets, a quick question for you. I know Bitstamp's doing more in the derivative space, and when you think about stables as a settlement token or a settlement asset, could you just spend a minute talking about that?
Sure. Yeah, we are working on a pretty major launch around a fully regulated perpetual swap offering in the EU. And you know, what we have to do to enable that marketplace is allow people to come in and out of it very, very simply and easily, such as via stablecoins, and also have a choice when they settle, if they want to settle in USD or RLUSD, for example. And so that is the plan, and that is the roadmap. You know, I'm not trying to pander or anything, but we selected RLUSD because it has all the ingredients I alluded to earlier. You know, it's regulated, it's backed, it's, you know, by a company that has been built on the ability to move value around the world. So it kind of fits very nicely with what we're trying to do.
Well, it's a perfect segue into my last question, perhaps the most important. Today, we're obviously announcing our day one launch partners, and that list will continue to grow. And each of you, you know, we're super appreciative of agreed to join us in that journey. And just curious what it is about Ripple, what it is about RLUSD that has attracted you to us, that's made you want to partner with us on this trajectory.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, we need more stablecoins, right? This needs to be a competitive market. And so, as we've seen, most of it has been dominated today by USDC and USDT. We want to see more entrants in the ecosystem, and there's obviously advantages to being built on the Ripple network, right? Transaction speeds, lower cost. And so we're agnostic. We ultimately want to build for every single use case. And for us, you know, customers already demand Ripple on MoonPay. It made sense to bring this analogous stablecoin into the ecosystem. And so for us, it's just all about ease of use, right? You should be able to use any payment method in the world and go into RLUSD, and we're excited to make that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Nancy?
I think for us, twofold. First, we have a rigorous listing process, and I think doing it the right way was easy to partner up and bring it to our community. That's really important that people are looking at us to bring real tokens with use cases to the platform. I think also never having delisted XRP, we have quite the community of XRP holders that I know are very interested in RLUSD and putting that, putting that in their portfolio. So, you know, for us, our community, I think, is really chomping to get a hold of RLUSD and participate in that ecosystem as well. So I think just doing it the right way, having a great regulated, backed, transparent token, really important to us, and I think it's something our community is asking for.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Crystal ball, you know, you look out, any projections you may have for the industry, and also eager to hear any advice you would have, you know, as we embark on this journey as an issuer, either attributes of a stablecoin or things you would want to see, you know, to help the overall market succeed and for our partnerships to succeed.
I think stablecoins are going to be the biggest form of cryptocurrency. We already see the vast majority of trading volume take place. And we're in the United States. You know, I believe in U.S. exceptionalism, and I really want to see a place where dollars get propagated anywhere over the internet. And so I think it's in our national interest that we build the very best competitive environment for entrepreneurs to build the best stablecoins in the world. We want that to happen here in the United States. There's a lot of reasons for it. And so for us, we're just excited to be able to support it in the very best way that we can, and that means building that backwards compatibility and building that infrastructure.
Yeah, I think it's continued to be market-led, right? There are real challenges with the payment systems today, right? Whether that's B2B and Ripple payments or trying to solve businesses to employees issues, or whether that's retail consumers trying to go cross-border. I think staying market-led and really solving those needs that businesses and retail users have, I think that is where the growth is going to come, right? When you can solve that need that they have, that's where adoption is, that's where utility is, that's where volume is. And I think that's where we need to maintain our focus, is what are we trying to solve for the market? And I think there's a lot to be solved in this space.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only thing I would add, I think, is, you know, the space continues to mature, I think, and that's what brings into stark relief what matters to users from a stablecoin perspective. The things we've been talking about, you know, transparency and regulatory reliance and other trust factors. I think that's never going to go out of style. I think when I look to the future, as I mentioned, I think think there'll be a rebalancing. There'll be different ecosystems that either because of the underlying currency or because of the rails that exist, such as with Ripple already and the trust, that there'll be some really strong growing projects. It won't just be a couple of guys. And then the last thing I said, I think we'll solve the regulation thing. At least I hope. That's really critical. I hope our lawmakers and our regulators are getting the joke at this point that the U.S. has this enviable position in the global financial marketplace, but if we don't enable stablecoins specifically, that's in jeopardy, I think. We won't be able to maintain it. So I do think we'll solve that as well, and we'll have a much more frictionless world and society, and of course, financial services.
Perfect way to end this on a note of optimism. So thank you, Bobby, Nancy, Ivan. Appreciate everyone's time.